It is time to do the most requested video I get, at least over the last 6 or 7 months. That's right, if you're one of the many people that have asked me to do the states with the most Black or African American residents, today is your day. Like I said in the last video in this series, a few months ago I caved to public pressure. I normally avoid race-related videos, but I had so many requests, I figure I might as well. I'm not comfortable with the subject and I didn't want to create a video that would have a comment section with racist comments and people crying that I'm being a racist for talking about race. Talking about someone's race does not make you a racist. How you talk about someone's race could make you a racist. I had a long email back and forth with one of our subscribers who happens to be a Black gentleman, and he had a good point. He said, if you're any kind of minority in this country, you already know who's out there. And then he quoted me. He said, you could make a video about lime jello and someone would turn it into some hate or something political. He had a point, so I decided to do this series. This is the 4th video in the series. We've done videos for Asian states, Hispanic states, and the whitest states. And stop typing. Yes, I'm doing the blackest states last. Like I said before, this is an uncomfortable subject for me, mainly because I'm very white. I'm so white I have 3 different types of mayonnaise in my refrigerator right now, and I have 2 different friends named Blaine. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Tennessee. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you up front, this is a tour of the southern states for the most part. If you had any thoughts Idaho or Alaska were going to be on this list, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I read a tourism book one time about Tennessee, and one of the quotes in there I remember, they said, if you want to experience Black America, you need to eat some fried catfish in Tennessee. The towns in Tennessee that have the highest percentage of Black residents would be Denmark, Tennessee, with 74.64% of their population, Grand Junction, Tennessee, with 72%, Stanton with 62%, Brownsville with 53%, and Whitesville, that's unfortunate, with 52.76%. Overall, at the 2020 census, Tennessee had a Black population that took up 17.8% of the population. That came out to about 1.4 million Black residents in Tennessee. Number 9, Virginia. This is another one that should be no shocker to anyone. The Black culture and history is strong in Virginia. Virginia is home to the longest continuous experience of Black life and culture in the United States, spanning more than 4 centuries. Some of the towns in Virginia with the highest percentage of Black residents. The first one, it's a small town, it's only got 400 people, but I'm going to put it on here just because I love the name of this town. Hustle, Virginia, 78.5% of that town is Black or African American. Freeman, Virginia has 72.18%. Bird's Nest, Virginia has 67%. And Waverly, Virginia with 67.24%. Overall, 18.6% of Virginia's residents are Black, giving them a population of about 1,600,000. Number 8, North Carolina. Yes, in case you don't know, North Carolina is a southern state, even though it's got the word north in it. I've had this discussion with people before. They seem to think it's not considered a northern state. I don't know where they're getting their education from, but I grew up on the other side of the country, and I knew North Carolina was a southern state. If you want to do something interesting and learn about Black history, in North Carolina, you can go to the Airborne and Special Operations Museum in Fayetteville. That's where Fort Bragg is. This historically all-Black airborne unit was activated during World War II and officially served from 1942 to 1950. A lot of the veterans from this unit served in the Korean War as well. The cities with the highest African American population in North Carolina would be Gettysburg with 86.32%, Lewiston Woodville with 83.43%, Enfield with 81.90%, and Scotland Neck with 72%. Now, there's a whole bunch of other ones in between there that they've only got like 150 people in the town, so I ignored those. Overall, North Carolina's Black population is 22.5% of the state's population. That's about 2.5 million Black residents. Number 7, Delaware. Yes, mind blown. Anyone else see this one coming? I mean, this one actually beat North Carolina. This is surprising. Delaware has a few cities, but their main metro area is Wilmington, and that is where a majority of their population lives. Not just the black population, the entire population. Delaware has a strange history when it comes to their African American population. Delaware prides itself on being the first state to ratify the Constitution, but they were one of the last to ratify the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery. But these days in Wilmington, if you want to learn about black history and heritage, you can go to the Delaware History Museum and Mitchell Center for African American Heritage. That's in Wilmington. It's on Market Street. Does every city have a Market Street? I think they do. I don't think I've ever been to a big city that doesn't have it. I know it has to do with the old days and that's where all the markets were, but yeah, I don't think I know of a city that doesn't have a Market Street, a major city at least. Now, overall, most of their cities don't have a really high percentage of the population being African American. Their highest percentages are Ellendale, Delaware, which is 38.88%, Bridgeville, which is 30.51%, Newcastle, which is 29.62%, Dover is 29.21%. Overall, Delaware's black population is 24.1% of the total population, meaning they have about 318,000 African American residents. Number 6, Alabama. On history alone, I thought Alabama would have been number 1 or 2. I mean, the civil rights movement basically kicked off in Alabama. You have Rosa Parks, the Montgomery bus boycott, the Tuskegee Airmen. You don't have to be a history buff, but if you want to read some interesting stuff, read about the Tuskegee Airmen. It's an amazing story of these men. Towns with the highest percentage of African Americans, well, there's Tuskegee Institute. They've got about 5,600 people living there, and about 95.2% of them are African American or black. Tuskegee, Alabama, the town, has about 11,000 people, and 90% of them are black or African American. And then Fairfield, Alabama has 12,000 residents, almost 13, and they've got 89.64% African American. Overall, 26.8% of Alabama's population is African American. That comes out to about 1.6 million residents. Number 5, South Carolina. Yeah, I could see South Carolina being here. South Carolina has a few interesting things when it comes to black history, including in 1708, South Carolina became the first British North American colony to have an African American majority. South Carolina also played a big part when it comes to the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. They had a lot of non-violent protests against unfair segregation laws, but most of the attention back then went to Alabama and Mississippi. The towns with the highest population of African Americans in South Carolina go like this. Gadsden, South Carolina has 94.99%. Salters, South Carolina is 88.6%. And Denmark, South Carolina has 81.96%. Overall, South Carolina's black population is 27% of the total population of the state of South Carolina, getting them to about 1.6 million residents that are African American or black. Number 4, Maryland. This is a surprise. You know, I really thought Alabama would have a higher percentage of African Americans than Maryland. I also thought Arkansas would be on this list, but it's not even close. They've got a lot of different African American history places you could visit in Maryland. Point Lookout State Park and Civil War Museum, Port Tobacco Courthouse, historic plantations, Old Jail at St. Mary's County, Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum, and the Drayton African American Schoolhouse. When it comes to cities with the highest population of African Americans, you have like Capitol Heights, Maryland, which has 41,000 residents. 93.9% of them are African American. District Heights, 89%. Suitland, 87%. And Temple Hill with 85.38%. Overall, 32% of Maryland's population is black or African American, putting them at about 2.2 million residents. Number 3, Georgia. This one is not a surprise. I could see this one easily. And I'm not even a historian, I just like to read. Georgia has a long history when it comes to the African American community. Sadly, most of it's not good history. Slavery, segregation, Jim Crow laws, all that stuff was really big in states like Georgia. But you also have some really nice things like the music that has come out of Georgia, the artists that have gone from everything rap, hip hop, rock and roll, jazz, blues, and then there's the food. It's amazing. Towns with the highest percentage of black residents in Georgia start off with Lithonia, Georgia, and they have 75.32%. That's a good sized town. That's 82,000 people. Stone Mountain with 70.18%, Decatur with 69.61%. Overall, Georgia's African American population makes up 33% of the total population, giving them about 3.5 million residents. Number 2, Louisiana. Now, the only thing that shocks me about this one is the percentage isn't higher. I mean, if you just look back at the history of Louisiana, you would think that this state would be half and half. It is not. Sadly, I just don't like the way Louisiana's been run since forever. Just all the things I've ever read, the stats I see, it's just depressing. And honestly, a lot of it has to do with a lot of their old politicians, deals they've made, things they've done. It's just too bad. But Louisiana has an amazing history. I mean, from the voodoo that went on in New Orleans, African Americans have influenced the music of Louisiana and helped develop jazz, blues, R&B, hip hop, and rock and roll. Some of the musicians that have come out of New Orleans alone, I'm just kind of focusing on New Orleans. That seems to be where a lot of the history comes from, and it's kind of the most interesting part of it. Lil Wayne, Louis Armstrong, Randy Jackson, Kevin Gates, James Booker, Fats Domino, Buddy Guy, Frank Ocean, then the Creole food. Oh my God, it's amazing down there. I'll be there in late January. I'll tell you all about it. Towns with the highest percentage of African Americans in Louisiana would be Grambling with 96.32%, which is a town and a university. You have St. James with 87.3%, Lake Providence with 73%, and my favorite name in Louisiana, Waterproof, Louisiana, with 68.04%. Overall, 33.1% of Louisiana's population is black or African American, putting them at 1.5 million African American or black residents. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. Also, if you would, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. I know I don't ask all the time like a lot of channels do, but we're getting really close to 1 million, and I'd really like to knock it out before summer. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Mississippi. This should be no surprise. Really should be no surprise if you ever bought barbecue in Mississippi, because all the best places are black owned, I swear to you. Mississippi, like Georgia and like a lot of the southern states, has a long African American history, and not all of it's good. Well, most of it's not good. Segregation, civil rights issues, slavery, it's all there. It's in the history books. I'm not telling you something you don't already know. One city in Mississippi that has the highest percentage of black residents is Mound Bayou, which has 97.8% African American. There's about 3,300 people that live there. This town was founded as an independent black community in 1887 by former slaves led by Isaiah Montgomery. Mound Bayou is almost 97% African American. This is one of the largest of any community in the United States. You also got Friars Point with 93.9%, Fayette, Mississippi with 91.3%, and Shelby, Mississippi with 88.03%. Overall, 37.9% of Mississippi's population is black or African American, putting them at about 1 million, a little over. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. I hope it didn't rub anyone the wrong way. If it did, if you didn't like the way I presented things, sorry, I apologize for that. Just the way I do things. If you think you could do it better, I suggest you start your own channel. It's a lot of fun. If you need any help, email me. I'll give you some suggestions. All right, everyone, have a great day. Be nice to each other.